Hey guys, what's up? It's all about Mike 18 here, back with another TV episode review. Guys, it's Monday night, and what do I normally watch on Monday night? There's a whole bunch of shows that are on TV on Monday night, and the only one that I end up watching is Bates Motel. That's right, guys, the newest episode of Bates Motel just premiered tonight. I just finished watching the episode, gathered my thoughts together, and here I am ready to give you guys my review. Now, guys, I'm back with my Bates Motel reviews. I know I did not review last week's episode. I want to give you my thoughts on that in a second, but I am back. I am still going to continue reviewing the episodes as the season progresses, but as you guys know, I did not review last week's because I was diagnosed with the flu last Monday exactly, and I just did not. I was not in the spirits to review. I wasn't up to it. But watch tonight's episode. Tonight's episode was Season 2, Episode 5, The Escape Artist. And I gotta say, I was looking forward to it, especially with what they did with last week's episode. Now, like I said, I didn't review it, but last week's episode was actually my favorite episode of the season so far, so I was definitely looking forward to tonight's episode. And in case you guys didn't know, spoiler-heavy review here. If you haven't seen the episode, I'm going to spoil the whole thing. Guys, as I did last night with my Walking Dead Season 4 finale review, I had to stop and take a lot of drinks of water. Oh, that feels better. I am going to be doing that a lot in this review. As you can tell by the sound of my voice, I'm still not 100%. I'm, losing my voice here and there. I'm trying to get it back, but I'm feeling a lot better. Nevertheless, I'm going to do that a lot. And check out my Walking Dead Season 4 finale review, which is already up on my channel. Just wanted to put that out there. Now, guys, last week's episode, I would probably give it a 9. I liked it a lot. Just a quick recap on my thoughts on it because I didn't review it. I really loved that ending scene with Norman and Caleb in the hotel. I mean, they're getting us on the path for setting up the events of Psycho. They already have been doing it, and they're continuing to do it. And they definitely did it in last week's episode with showing Norman and how he has those blackouts, and how when he has these blackouts, he sometimes develops that split personality that we had seen and loved in Psycho. And that's where they're going with the show, and I really do like it. So last week's episode was good overall. I had a few slow moments, but the ending was worth it. It was really worth it, in my opinion. The tension build-up, all that was great. So tonight's episode, on the other hand, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed a few of the storylines that were going on, but I kind of feel the same way with this episode, with the way I felt with episode 3, Caleb. There were a lot of storylines going on. We were, they threw a lot of new information at us, and a lot of these storylines, we got about 4 or 5 storylines going on in tonight's episode, and they're giving us all this information. Things get a little messy, and nothing really, tense happened in the episode or exciting. If maybe 1 or 2 exciting things, but other than that, nothing really, really exciting. So with that being said, I wasn't a huge fan of tonight's episode, but I'm not going to say it's bad. It definitely, kept me interested in it. So, without further ado, guys, let's get into the actual review. Excuse me for that. Now, since there were about 4 or 5 storylines in tonight's episode, I'm just going to pick apart each one and analyze and discuss each one. I'm not going to, just describe the whole episode in chronological order, explaining each and every event and mixing up each storyline. That just is dumb, in my opinion, and, get you guys very confused. So I'm just going to take each storyline and describe it and discuss it, basically. So, of course, we had a Norman and Cody storyline, and, of course, all the storylines, well, most of them connect by the end of the episode. We had a storyline with Norma and this new character, Nick Ford. We had a storyline with Sheriff Romero. We had a storyline with Dylan and that Zane guy, and then, of course, we had a storyline with Emma. And then I think we even had another minor storyline. So a lot happened tonight. But anyway, getting into the Norman storyline. If we remember the end of last week's episode, Norman was found by Cody in that diner, that restaurant place, after he had that run-in with Caleb. He was just sitting in the diner, sitting there in one of his blackouts. And of course, Cody is becoming more and more involved in his life. And Norma really doesn't know about Cody yet, and yeah, she finds out about Cody in tonight's episode. Let's just put it that way. Cody arrives at the motel to take Norman. They go on basically this like hike, or this like their own little, you know, exploration throughout the woods or whatever. I don't know. And Cody arrives at the hotel. She's smoking a cigarette. She's got a, you know, a tank top on. She's showing off her tattoos. She's blasting her car music. Meanwhile, Norma's watching all of this, and you can tell Norma's not going to be a big fan of this. And this was honestly one of the more interesting storylines of the episode. The whole thing with Norma meeting Cody and Norman spending time with Cody, because Cody's that bad girl type. You know, I'm not a huge fan of her personally. I feel that she's really not necessary in the show. I wasn't until tonight's episode. I saw tonight's episode, and I saw what happened between her and Norma, because something clicked in my head tonight. She's this bad girl type, and she's hanging out with Norman. What is this going to be? Who is this going to be a problem for? This is going to be a problem for Norma. Norma obviously doesn't like the idea. She never liked the idea of Norman socializing with girls, especially girls, you know. She wants him to get out there, but when it comes to girls, it's Norma we're talking about here. Norman's mother, okay? So you know she doesn't like him socializing with girls, and now the fact that he's hanging out with a bad girl who, you know, is really, you know, kind of disrespectful to elders, you know, and she lives by her own rules, but she does have a rough childhood because her father, you could tell in the one scene in the episode, he's abusive and he's a drunk and, you know, not the best father she has, basically. And this is obviously going to anger Norma, and Norman is spending time with her, and that is something that I found rather interesting, and I do like where they're going with that. So Norman and Cody go on this hike, and you could tell Cody is a bad influence on him. You could tell, you know, she's got that rough childhood. She's had that rough childhood going on. She still does. But she's a bad influence on Norman. They drink some beer. I think they had some Heineken, to be exact. Excuse me. You can tell she's not the greatest influence on Norman. Let's just put it that way. And during their hike, they find this like treehouse or something. Okay, and this scene completely reminded me of Bridge to Terabithia, but, you know, for, like, older teenagers. That's just what it reminded me of. So the two of them go into the treehouse, and I forgot to mention, throughout the episode, Cody's constantly mentioning of wanting to leave. You could tell this is all because of her bad childhood. And Norman and Cody end up making out and apparently having sex in the treehouse. And I'm like, oh, okay, they're kind of rushing into this, but you can understand why they're rushing into this. Norman and Cody's relationship is getting stronger. They just had sex, from what I have guessed. So you can tell that Norma's not going to be pleased by this because of how close they're getting with each other. So I like where they're going with that. And Norman comes home late, of course. Norma's not pleased with this, and she basically tells Norman to stay away from Cody. She says she's a bad influence on him. And Norman, he doesn't fight it. He basically agrees. He's like, okay, fine, I'll do it. But you know that he's going to continue to see Cody, and this is not the end of this. But that was basically the Norman storyline, the whole entire episode. Norman confesses that he's had these blackouts before a couple of times to Cody, and he's never told anyone. So you can see that relationship getting stronger, definitely. So the next storyline, that was basically it for Norman's storyline. The next one I'll get into is Norma's storyline with this new character, Nick Ford. I don't know the actor himself, but I do know he's been in several movies. Recently, he starred in Dallas Buyers Club as that FDA guy, and his character's name is Nick Ford. So, Norma is trying to fight off this bypass. They're still going at it with this bypass thing. And she met at that party she went to in episode 3. She met this Nick Ford guy, who's apparently in the drug business, according to Romero. And Norman, excuse me, Norma sits down with him, has a meeting with him in the episode, and he wants to help her fight this bypass. So they have a brief meeting on his yacht, and you could tell there's something shady going on about him, and it is revealed later on in the episode that Romero obviously doesn't trust him, and he warns Norma to stay away from him. But anyway, in order to help Norma combat this bypass thing, he tells her that I want to work with you. They're basically going to be like business partners or whatever. And he gives her this number of this guy who can help her. She leaves. She goes to this guy's office, and he sets up a complaint that Norma can put into the to the council meeting. You remember there was that council meeting in the first episode where she called the council leader a dick. And of course that thing with the councilman leader, that comes back up tonight, and that's why Nick Ford is, he trusts Norman, he wants to get to know her more, and he wants to work on shutting down this bypass with her because of her her fierceness and what she did with standing up to the council leader. So you can tell, he trusts her and he wants to work with her, and he trusts her basically. So Norma takes this complaint from this guy that knows Nick Ford and brings it to the council people, and yeah, that's basically it. But something very shocking happens at the end of the episode, involving Sheriff Romero and Norma. Romero is meanwhile staying at the Bates Motel because someone set his house on fire, which I'll get into in a while. Excuse me, guys. I gotta keep taking these breaks. Norma is told by Romero, they're having a conversation, and she tells him, "Oh, I met this Nick Ford guy. What do you think of him?" And he's like, he works with the drug business. Don't trust him. I wouldn't, socialize with him or anything like that. That's basically what Romero tells Norma. But of course, we know Norma is going to continue to see this Nick Ford guy. You could tell that he has some sort of power. He does work for the drug business, according to Romero, yes. But he definitely has some sort of power in this town. And, I don't know, maybe this frightens Romero. Maybe Romero, not frightens him, maybe he's antagonized by him or something like that. But Romero just basically warns Norma to stay away from him. And at the very end of the episode, Romero tells Norma that councilman leader, that guy who Norma called a dick, was found dead in a car crash. Now, we don't know if this was staged, but think about it. It's White Pine Bay. People die, people get killed, and it looks like, an accident or a suicide. Look at what happened with Norman's, with Bradley's dad, and the whole drug business. So I'm guessing this Nick Ford had something to do with this guy's car crash. But anyway, obviously we're going to find out about that next week. But getting into the minor secondary character storylines with Romero, like I already mentioned, someone burned down Romero's house, and Romero's out looking for answers. First off, he rents a room. He buys a room in Bates Motel. He checks in, and he's going to be staying there for a while because his house is burned down. But meanwhile, he's trying to get to the bottom of not only who burned his house down, but he's also combating. He's against the he's going butting heads with this drug business, the weed business of White Pine Bay. And it involves a fist fight between him and Michael Eklund's character, Zane. I finally found out his name this week. His name is Zane. So anyway, he beats the crap out of him, and he's like, you know what, I'm going to bring your business down. Now, I'm not saying that Zane burned down his house. We're not exactly sure who burned down Romero's house, but Romero's starting to make some accusations, and he's starting to, slip away from this drug business. He's starting to not really trust him anymore, so he beats the crap out of that Zane guy, and they both get into a fist fight, and that's what leaves Romero with, bruises, and, that's why he had blood on him, and that's when Norma was, tending to him, and that's when they had this is when the storyline started connecting, and then they mentioned Nick Ford, and then at the very end of the episode, Romero reveals to Norma that thing about the councilman leader who was killed in the car crash. So that was basically everything with Romero's storyline. Obviously, we'll find out more about this thing with Romero's house and who burnt it down. I want to say that Zane. Excuse me, guys. I want to say Zane did it, but I'm not exactly positive on that. Real quick, guys, another storyline that happened tonight that I really briefly want to get into is Emma's storyline. Nothing really too, important in terms of, Norman's storyline or anything like that. But Emma, it involves her and then that boy that she met that night of that party for Bradley. That bonfire for Bradley. Let me say that. And it involves that guy she met. Remember, she thought she slept with him, but now she kind of, is drawing closer to him. And every single time she meets him, apparently she thinks about sex and that she might want to have sex with this guy. So she talks to Norma about it. And I really do like that scene between them, because when you think about it, and even Emma makes note of this, Emma really doesn't have any woman to rely on. She has Norman, she has her father, but that's really it. She doesn't have her mother. She has no girlfriends, really. So that scene with Norma, and she's like, how do I know if I'm ready to have sex or whatever, and they have that kind of little talk. You could tell that there's definitely a relationship between Norma and Emma. Norma trusts Emma. She feels she is a good girl. Emma is innocent, even with what happens in tonight's episode. She feels she is a good girl, especially a girl that Norma would want socializing and being around Norman. So that's all understandable. So that's why I see the two of them having like a bond in this episode. So it was nice to see that. But anyway, and you could tell that Norman's now not all that pleased with Emma having this boyfriend, and Norman really doesn't trust him. But we'll see where that's going to unfold. I could tell there's going to be some sort of lovers triangle in between there, because I don't think this thing with Cody is going to work out all that far, especially with Norma not trusting Cody. But anyway, yeah. So Emma, has a walk on the beach with this guy. The two of them end up kissing, and then they end up having sex. In the end of the episode, cuts to the next storyline. So just wanted to quickly mention that. So they're going somewhere with that storyline as well. And then finally, the last storyline, well, not the last, but one of the last, one of the secondary storylines was the whole thing with Dylan. Dylan has moved out, and he's kind of like sleeping in his own job, and basically the only, really noteworthy thing that happened with Dylan is that they go to lunch. He goes to lunch with that Zane guy who got the crap kicked out of him by Romero, and the two of them go to lunch, and what happens? They're leaving this this restaurant, this Mexican restaurant, and there's a drive-by shooting. They're firing at this car drives by, firing at Dylan and Michael Eklund's character Zane, and Dylan gets him to duck, pulls out his gun. Meanwhile, they're right in the the light of day, during the middle of the day on the street. Dylan just whips out his gun and starts firing off a couple shots. Car turns around, comes speeding back towards Dylan. Dylan steps in the middle of the road and fires a few shots at the passengers. I think he hit one. I wasn't too sure of that. I'm not going to confirm that or not. And he gets run over by the car. So Dylan ends up in the hospital by the end of the episode, and he meets his boss, apparently, of the weed business. Now, I always thought that the boss was a guy, or I always thought that they referred to the boss as a guy, but apparently not. The boss, who is Michael Eklund's character, Zane, Zane's sister, is apparently the boss of the whole weed operation, and she's played by Kathleen Robertson. You guys know Kathleen Robertson. She's been in a couple movies. It was nice to see her in the end of the episode, and she thanks him for saving her brother Zane's life, and she basically tells him that's his boss, and that's the end of that. That was the end of the episode, actually. So I don't know where they're going with that, actually, guys. They're going somewhere with it, clearly, but I don't know exactly where. So yeah, that was the episode, guys. Now, I know that my explanation of every storyline, is all over the place, but that's because the storylines felt a little messy tonight. They're just throwing these storylines at us, and there's like 4 or 5 of them in an episode, 5 of them to be exact. And I really think that Bates Motel, well, it's a very fast-paced show, and we really don't have enough time to, really appreciate or, focus on one storyline, because they're giving us all these different storylines, and they try to connect them at the end of the episode. And not only that, is that the problem with the episode, that they're throwing all of this information at us, but the storylines, when they connect, or when they're, they have all this build-up, and, they're supposed to be tense, they're really not. The storylines tonight just fell a little flat for me. this whole thing with the bypass, I still am not a fan of it. I'm really not a huge fan of the new characters, honestly. Cody and this Nick Ford guy and all these new guys in Dylan's drug business. Zane, I mean, I'm just... what can I say? I just don't like them all that much. I mean, I gotta get used to them, I guess. But I am starting to like Cody more because of the purpose of her character involving Norman and Norma. And honestly, that whole storyline and what I see that leading up to, you know, a possible, you know, fight between, you know, an argument or a conflict between Norman and Norma. That's what I see happening with that storyline with Norman and Cody. But other than that, guys, 10th episode was just you know, it kept me interested enough to watch it, but it wasn't really that exciting, or nothing really too exciting really happened tonight. Even a couple of the scenes were a little predictable. As soon as I saw them, Dylan and Zane coming out of the restaurant, I knew that they were going to get shot at. I saw it in a promo. And even the scene where Michael Eklund's character, Zane, is about to get beat up by Romero, the camera starts to get a little shaky, and I'm like, oh, everything's a little quiet. I know something's going to happen here. And then, of course, Romero shows up and starts to kick the crap out of him. So, yeah, I mean, nothing really exciting happened tonight for me, guys. I'm not going to say the episode was bad. It was okay. It could have been a lot better, though. I'm going to go 8 out of 10 for me. Just average. I was thinking 7.5 out of 10, but I did like a couple of the plot lines. I'm hoping that just the show gets a lot more exciting, you know. I know it will towards the end of the season, but I'm waiting for it to happen, and I can't wait for that to happen exactly. And another thing that's upsetting, the whole Caleb thing is kind of over. You know, they kind of rushed into that. The whole thing with Miss Watson, they brought her up for the first 2 episodes, but it's like she's been forgotten for the last 3 episodes. So I don't know where they're going. They have all these unfinished storylines, and I hope they're going to resolve most of them by the end of the season. Yeah, that's another thing. So yeah, 8 or 7.5 out of 10 for me for tonight, guys. Not a huge fan, but it was decent. So guys, if you did watch the episode, let me know. I hope you did. I'll just spoil the whole thing for you. Let me know what you thought of it down below, guys. And again, sorry for not reviewing last week's, but I wasn't feeling that good, but I'm feeling a lot better now. So thank you guys very much for watching, and leave me your thoughts on the episode down below. And also check out my Walking Dead Season 4 finale review ready up on my channel. Thanks for watching, guys.